being the ones who could do most good, that's the orphans. And he specialized in taking children out. He sought orphans wherever he could in convents. He had lists and letters and whatnot, and he identified them. And at one point, there was an assassination plot against Schonfeld, which was, by the way, instigated by the Jewish communists in Poland. They weren't going to let anybody spoil the brand new world that they're going to create in Poland. Like they're going to create brand new worlds all over the world. So why is we letting this Jew take out Jews from Poland, and we're going to create a new Poland? So thank God that he was not assassinated. And as typical Schonfeld would say, if the Abishur wants me around, wants me to do the job, let me realize. Otherwise, I go. That was Schonfeld. And obviously the Abishur had other plans for him. So he brought out these children, and he had about 150 children at that point. And it was a danger, and he saw the danger. You know, there was a pogrom in Kiel, so over 100 Jews killed and many more wounded. The Polish showed that they weren't happy with the Germans killing most Jews. They wanted all of them killed so they could keep all the apartments and all the goods and never see a Jew again. So what do you do when you have to get out immediately with 150 kids? You rent a boat in Danzig, or Gdansk as they call it. And what do you do with a boat? You have a captain, and they have a small crew. And he was the rest. He was the father, the mother, the aunt, the uncle of all these children. He didn't speak Polish, but between German and Yiddish and broken whatever it was, he managed to bring comfort to little children, to teenagers. He was there for everybody. He was the sole person, a human being, that took these children out, but more than taking them out, he constantly, this was a constant refrain, and I challenge anyone to differ on this, he made them feel secure and proud as Jews. Here these were children who were hidden, or children who were browbeaten at the very best. And they were told they were no good and they're terrible, and you name it, you know the stories that these children went through. But he made them feel proud as Jews and said, you're important, you're valuable, you are our chosen people, and we have things to accomplish, and you're going to accomplish it. And he brings them back to England, and it's close to Pesach time. And what do? He wants to give the children a break. So he calls up the hotels in Bournemouth and other places you know better than I. And he said, I have some children, I'm sure you'll want to take some. I'm sorry, we're booked, we can't, we haven't got room. You mean to say after all these children, what they went through, you haven't got room for a few children? By the time he got through it, they begged to take. And he got all the children for Pesach taken care of. So the first experience in England was a Pesach, a welcome in the hotels for these Jewish children. It was a totally different world. They couldn't even conceive of it before. One of them told me, when he first heard that Schonfeld came to Poland, the rabbis in Poland, they see a tall, good-looking man, who's like an angel, said. And in a British uniform, they didn't know he created his own uniform. The chief rabbis of religious university council.
During the Holocaust?
1946. So this incident was after the war. He's trying to pull out refugees, orphans from Poland who were hidden after the war. Just describing one incident, say typical Schonfeld. Then I'll describe who's this man, who's this Rabbi Schonfeld that was the father, mother, and a rescue activist par excellence. A Talmud of Rabbi Weissman, so Weissman we could be proud of. This Rabbi Schonfeld had very interesting forebears. His mother is a direct descendant of Kiva Eger. Comes from very choshev mishpacha. But that's not important. His father was Rabbi Victor, thank you. Any of you people help me out, I will always accept any corrections and help that you can render. Rabbi Victor Schonfeld came, was a rarity too in his time, from Hungary originally. He studied in the universities. He remained a frum Jew. He came out with a perspective of Torah Decheretz. He was very much influenced by Hirsch in Frankfurt. And to him that was a derech he felt one can approach the modern world, which was facing difficulties. We know that modern Jews in all the countries were being decimated by droves. England, America was even worse in those days. He was called to a small congregation, which later became the Adas in London, and he tried to implement his Torah Decheretz perspective He created youth groups, and he gave lectures to the women. He tried to involve everybody. He was very successful in doing so. One of his Balabatim was, I think, Harry Goodman, one of the leaders of Mizrahi. And,
Aguda.
no, you're wrong. He was the leader of Mizrahi. He became Aguda when he married an Erlanger. I knew I'd get that one. He married an Erlanger and said, I'm not marrying a Mizrahi. I got the 50th birthday album from Harry Goodman from his daughter. I have the letters in there to prove my point. At any rate, yes, he was a Mizrahist. And don't make fun of Mizrahi. Mizrahi was Orthodox Jewry in Western Europe and the United States and Canada. Mizrahi was Orthodox Jewry. There was no Aguda there. In Germany, you had Aguda. In Poland, you had Aguda. And Aguda was Mizrahi was the mainstay of Orthodox Jewry in most of the Western world. So just remember that different worlds and different times, let's not confuse issues. But Harry Goodman was a Mizrahist at first, and he became a dedicated Agudist. In fact, he became a right-wing Agudist. He became too right-wing for some others. People don't even realize it. But he was a great man as well. And Schonfeld, Rabbi Avigdor Schonfeld, tried to create a kehillah along the lines of Frankfurt, meaning the Orthodox controlling a separatist, or we call it Auschwitz-Gemeinde, in England, where the Orthodox have total control over all different institutions, the education, the cemetery, the shechita, you name it. That's a real kehillah in European fashion. In the United States, you didn't have anything like that. I don't even know if you had it in England. You had the United Synagogue, you had the Federation, but you certainly didn't have an Orthodox kehillah, in which he created. And he had his fights with the chief rabbi, Rabbi Avigdor. And his son, now Rabbi Avigdor started the very first day school, the Hasmonean, in 1930. And it was a wonderful idea. Excuse me? Yes, the Jewish secondary school, correct, called the Hasmonean. And it was not an easy job for him to find parents to let their, we're talking about Orthodox Jews, send their kids to what we call today a Jewish day school. Right. After all, he has to make a panosa, he has to integrate into society, he's not going to be a rabbi. All these same arguments were true in the United States, but at the same time. It was no different. It was a difficult job starting yeshivas in the United States, as it was in England and in other places. He succeeded, and he died at the age of 49, after 1 year of creating the Adas Kehillah, and he had a cemetery there and other facilities, and he started the Hasmonean school, and then he passed away. His wife, the Rebbitzin, was determined, and she was a very strong personality, that her son would take over. What do you do meanwhile? Her son, Shlomo, the second of 7 children, was only 18 years old. He had been sent to Nitra to study with Rav Weissmandl, and he became close to Rav Weissmandl then. In fact, at one point he was playing tennis, found playing tennis with a girl. You know, Slovakia, it wasn't exactly standard fare. So what did Rav Weissmandl do? When someone snitched on him, Rav Weissmandl said in Yiddish, some of you may know Yiddish, so allemal sein das strict zwischen den beiden. In other words, there always should be a rope like that, the net between the two. He realized he was an English boy. He was not a Pressburger yeshiva. He knew the difference between telling a Pressburger boy how to behave and expecting something from an English boy or an American or something like that, because he knew the distinctions. Not everybody was capable of doing that. But Rabbi Weissmandl was extremely wise, not only brilliant, but wise. And this is typical of him. They came very close to Rabbi Schonfeld. When he came to England several times, he was 3 times in England. Twice he went to work on his manuscript. And he stayed with Rabbi Schonfeld for a while. Of course, he was in Oxford working on the manuscript. And he stayed in touch with him later on as well. In 1939, he went to England to tell Rabbi Schonfeld he saw war looming on the horizon. He would have been able to stay in England. And by the way, a very good biography is out about Rabbi Weissmandl by Mr. What's your father? Abraham Fuchs. And the Hebrew edition is available here. You'll get to know about this great man. You should know about him because he's really the genius of rescue. And he told Rabbi Schonfeld about a plan to take out the whole Nitra yeshiva and the families to bring them to Canada. And people speculate there's a part in Auschwitz called the Canada section where they used to take the clothing and separate the clothing of the victims and all these horror things that what the Germans determined for the victims in Auschwitz. They call it the Canada section, all kinds of speculations. The truth is this is the origin. When some of these Slovak Jews were the first ones sent to Auschwitz, said, well, this is your Canada plan, in other words. The idea of going to Canada ended up in Auschwitz. And the fact is that I have documents from 1943 yet to try to still bring out some Jews from Nitra and bring them to Canada. So it was clearly his idea to bring out a community and the yeshiva to bring them to Canada. And he thought there he could have a yeshiva learn in isolation and really rise to greatness, but that was not to be. And for Klal Yisrael's sake, it was a good thing because Rabbi Weizmann would function, as I mentioned before, as leader of the Slovak Jewish underground to try to inspire, and he did inspire, rescue efforts of all kinds. He was the most frustrated man during the war, of course, because most of his ideas were not accepted by Jews. It was too far ranging, they were just too far-fetched for other people to realize. His brilliant mind could conceive of things that they couldn't believe. But getting back to Schonfeld, his father was a great inspiration to him because his father had also worked, by the way, with refugees that came into England in 1914 during World War I, who were enemy aliens during the First World War, and his father helped spare some of them internment, which we will see later will happen during World War II as well. His father was an inspiration with Torah Decheret. That became his perspective of looking at the world with Hirschian ideas and ideals. He was very proud of having the doctorate PhD and proud of being an Orthodox Jew. And it was very important for him. And something that assimilationist Jews, whether they were in America or England and other places, could not fathom. They were trying to be assimilated, integrate fully into society, being accepted by them as equals, and were willing to drop our uniqueness as Jews, was the idea. They accepted the Goyish conditions set to them in the end of the 18th century. And as long as you look and behave like the rest of us, we'll accept you, we'll take you. And the Jews accepted that. And they wanted to be as much as a Goy as possible, through extreme, intermarried, lesser extreme became Reform, so they could make the Shabbos into a Sunday, and other ways of adapting to the Goyish environment. Rabbi Victor Schonfeld already showed you can be an Orthodox Jew, and you can be proud as an Orthodox Jew, and be a proud Englishman as well. And by the way, he founded Mizrahi in England. And he was so good in his work with the Kehillah that the Mizrahi took him to Eretz Yisrael to establish the educational system there. And he was there for 2 years. And there was politics. The man was an Erlich Yid, Rabbi Victor Schonfeld. He doesn't know any politics. He knows only Yiddishkeit. And he said it's time for Mizrahi and Agudah to get together and work on things in Eretz Yisrael. He could not succeed, and he left Eretz Yisrael, he went back to England, and that's when he established the Avita school there. And he established, I mentioned to you, youth groups, the Ben Zakkai youth groups, which I think preceded the Ezra, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not certain about it. Maybe I didn't say it was. I know it had nothing to do with it. I just wonder who was earlier. I think Ezra was earlier. Earlier. Although Ezra later split, divided into Tzirei and Mizrahi. It was a whole interesting little thing. But anyway, I can do a little bit out of like anyhow, he tried to work on the youth. And he gave lectures, said to the women, he had classes for girls. At the beginning, the school was integrated, boys and girls. And you know how it's separated? I'll tell you how the story. Rabbi Schonfeld told me that story. Well, she was pregnant, and in those days, she didn't want to be seen in the school with boys that are being pregnant. And so she told Rabbi Schonfeld, I can't teach me anymore. So what does the typical Rabbi Schonfeld do? Forget it. You come in the car. You go around, he finds a school, a girls' school, he goes inside and says, I want to buy your school. He bought the girls' school. They said, okay, now you're a headmistress of a girls' school. He bought the school, the girls were still in there, the Goyish girls. And eventually it petered out. And that became the girls' school for the Hasmonean. Rabbi Schonfeld became the headmistress there. And I had a separate boys' school. The same thing happened, by the way, in America. The first schools were integrated, boys and girls. The camps, the Orthodox camps, were integrated. Some of the camps you wouldn't recognize today used to have boys and girls together. I was a waiter in Camp Yisrael. But the world was different. I'm just trying to tell you the world changed in many ways. And Rabbi Avigdor Schonfeld established a foothold in London for a certain Orthodox perspective. Rabbi Shlomo Schonfeld, sent by his mother back to Nitra to learn for smicha, so he could take over the Rabbanos. Meanwhile, Rabbi Munk, who had just come to England, Eliyahu Munk, took over temporarily the shul, the Adas, and at the ceremony, I think maybe the first yortzeit, there was a Rabbi Felder, I believe, a Darshan, who opened the Yom Kodesh, and he made very clear the Rebbe's objective. Akisei lo yeshev zor, he said out loud, no stranger may sit on his throne, meaning Rabbi Schonfeld's Melucha here is going to return to a Schonfeld. So Rabbi Munk should know it's only a temporary job. And he stayed there for 3 years. Meanwhile, Rabbi Schonfeld went to Nitra, and then he went on to Slobodka to learn, go for smicha, and simultaneously, the man did it, University of Königsberg, he got his PhD. So he came back at the age of 21 with a beard, a PhD, and smicha.
Which year?
At the ripe old age of 21. That was in 1933, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, you can correct me on the exact dates. I believe it was in 1933. And he took over the Adas. Some people left with Rabbi Munk. He started the shul in Golders Green. The Golders Green Adas, is it?
No.
The Munk shul. I know, I doubt it. And he had his own big shul, and he was very successful. But Rabbi Schonfeld took his father's pioneering steps, and he went very much further. He increased the day school. He really established the day school movement in England. He increased the influence. He created the hechsher called Kadashya, which the word, by the way, was done by Mr. Marcus Reda. I don't know if any of you knew him.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. He's in New York. That's right. You'll see his name probably in my book. I have many stories that he told me about Rabbi Schonfeld. Yes, because the word Kadashya was his creation. And so you have the Kadashya. He created many other institutions for this Kehillah. And he paved the way for Jews to integrate into English society without giving up an iota of their Yiddishkeit. And he thought, well, he's going to really develop the Kehillah and the day school movement. He was the presiding rabbi of the Kehillah, the Adas Kehillah, and he was the principal of the day schools, and that's what his goal was until along came Islam changed the circumstances, and they got a call one day from Julius Steinfeld after Weissmandl got in touch with Steinfeld that we have to arrange for Orthodox transports to England. So he held a meeting at two Balabatim, important Balabatim. I mentioned Harry Goodman, Oliver Sholem, and Jacob Rosenheim, president of World Aguda. He was always there. And they are having a meeting. Of course, we're going to establish a committee. We're going to do all these things. This fine gentleman, he left at his station and went to the airport. He went to Vienna the next day. This was Schonfeld. He was not there for meetings or committees or any of that stuff. He could not take bureaucracy. He was there immediately. The next day he was in Vienna. And he arranged with Julius Steinfeld to try to establish the Kindertransport. And the first Kindertransport came in December with about 300 youngsters. And the good old assimilationist Jews in England couldn't stand that. First of all, the establishment Jews who did some very good work, by the way, just like in America, the Joint Distribution Committee did some wonderful work. But when it came to certain things, they restricted themselves. They didn't want to do anything that wasn't 1,000% legal, anything that wasn't 1,000% loyal or appearance of loyalty. And they wanted to know where Rabbi Schonfeld, where have you got place for all these children? And who's going to guarantee for them? They weren't doing that. This was an unauthorized kinder transport. So Rabbi Schonfeld got people to give their guarantees. You had to give a guarantee for each child that they won't become a public charge. Like you need an affidavit for America. You need a somewhat similar thing in England. So you got people to guarantee. Some of them didn't take it seriously when he discovered the government started asking him questions. But I didn't mean it. So Schonfeld often got into trouble because he had to work on an immediate problem, an immediate solution, not the organizational bureaucratic method of establishing all kinds of things. So he asked him, the Home Office asked him, where are you going to put these children? Meanwhile, he had emptied out the Hasmonean school, took out all the desks, and he prepared room for about 240, 250 children. And so when he asked him, well, what about the other children? He says, come with me. He took him to his house, which was 35 Lordship Road. I was there, in fact. Rudy Stern lives in that house. And he said they'll sleep. He showed him all the rooms. And he was lucky his mother was away at the time. And he asked him where you were going to sleep. So he went upstairs in the attic and showed him a cot where he's going to sleep. The man was obviously impressed. He was impressed with Schonfeld because the man realized Schonfeld was not out for PR, for publicity. He was out to save Jews, and he was willing to sacrifice personally. Had no meaning for him. Publicity had no meaning for him. His ego was not involved. He was really interested, and that came through, by the way. There were many British public servants who realized this man was really out to rescue Jews. He was not out for any publicity. And we know the tragedy of Jewish publicity. Sometimes they kill a whole project because they have to have the publicity involved. So they agreed, and the assimilationists, Jews, were the ones that egged on the Home Office. And they wanted to know how much space have we got for each child. They're the ones that sent the inspectors there. And the inspector came back satisfied with Schonfeld's thing. But they didn't let Schonfeld rest, by the way. We'll soon see what more troubles they gave him. And then he tried to find homes for these kids. And it's not easy, finding homes for these kids. Orthodox Jews have to give a din l'cheshbon someday on why they didn't care enough, why English Goyim cared more to take in these Jewish children than Jewish families. That's something that Jewish families in England and United States and in Switzerland and in other countries will have to give a din l'cheshbon. We have to give our own din l'cheshbon. We don't. You may not know yet what cheshbonis we have to give. Don't think that we're innocent when we blame other generations. But the tragedy is that the Jews were not willing to open their homes to these children. More Goyim in England that didn't know what a Jew was opened up their homes to accept Jewish children. And tragically, quite a few thousand Jewish children were totally assimilated, others became totally converted. So Jews didn't take in these children. And Schonfeld tried his best. He got homes for them. For those that he could not get homes, though, he established kosher hospitals. And he had a couple or two in charge, and they had a kosher hospital. If he hasn't got a family, okay, we'll deal with it another way. That was Schonfeld. If you have a problem, you get a solution. If there's not one solution, you get another solution. One of the greatest of these great Hatzalah Ashkenazim is the fact that they don't give up. They don't take a no for an answer, and they don't take a lack of success as the end goal. They continue, they persevere despite all obstacles. And so he brought in these children, and placed them in Jewish homes, and Baruch Hashem, most of them found homes. And one of them, who I introduced, was, you send a kid away from Vienna. The parents tragically had to part with their children. What did the children think? The parents abandoned them. And what happens when Schonfeld brought the children to a home? Sometimes it didn't work out. And there's one girl, who happened to be a pretty girl, and of course a little problem with siblings. It's not an easy thing, by the way, to accept a Jewish child. You had the same problem in the issue when you had the children of Tehran, and the Orthodox were less open to taking care of them than the secularists were. As Yitzchak Broya once said, we had a quarter or a tenth of the Mesiras Nefesh that the secularists had for their Avodah Zarah, we could accomplish 10 times as much. But tragically, they had a Mesiras Nefesh, for their Avodah Zaras, and the Orthodox Jews didn't do enough. The same thing happened in England. And so this child, she told me, she was brought by the foster parents, put on Schonfeld's door, just left it. Imagine what a child, a 7-year-old child, feels like, being abandoned a second time. Schonfeld opens the door, and she says, girl, what's typical Schonfeld? I forget the girl's name. Let's call her Cousin Elizabeth. It's so wonderful that you're here. I just need you to have a girl going with me. I promised her a ride in the car. And the car in those days was a big yichus, 1939. I need you to keep her company. He took his car and he got another girl. They gave him a ride around London. So first thing he did, typical Schonfeld, he was unlike other rescue activists. If he had brought over the transporter, it would have been a great thing for anyone to do. But he cared for every single child. And in one of the pieces in my old book said, he never forgot a name. And I know he never forgot a name. He had Baruch Hashem, a fabulous memory. I was standing in the Hendon during that ceremony, 1982, when he passed next to me, was somebody who said, Moshe, how are you? In his crippled condition. Another case in 1953, he came to the United States. He came to Rabbi Fabian Schonfeld, whom he saved. He's not related. And he had an appointment to speak in Schonfeld's shul and an appointment to speak in Fifth Avenue Synagogue. What did he know? That Queens and Manhattan, it's all the same, you know. On a map, it's one little round dot. So, as Rabbi Schonfeld told me, he finished speaking at night, and he told Rabbi Schonfeld he has to speak in the Fifth Avenue Synagogue. It's a nice mahalach to go to Fifth Avenue Synagogue. That's no problem, he'll walk there. And so next day he started walking, and he walked across the Queensboro Bridge, and the police car started following him, wondering who this nutcase is. So he finally explained to the policeman, and the policeman followed him all the way down to the Fifth Avenue Synagogue. Now, it happens my brother-in-law is English, an Englishman who studied in the Mir before the war, and he came in 1940 to America. That's how I got involved in rescue. Also, he became Rabbi Kamenovich's assistant. At any rate, his brother, Leslie Weisvogel, came to America that time and didn't know anybody. So he happened to be a student in Hasmonean school. He was not one of the children's day. And he heard that Rabbi Schonfeld was going to be in Fifth Avenue Synagogue. So he came in, stood outside, you know, he's a stranger, didn't feel at home. Fifth Avenue Synagogue, all the fancy Jews are there. That's the fanciest Orthodox shul in New York. So Rabbi Schonfeld stands at the podium and is talking, and he sees Leslie. He stops his speech and says, Leslie Weisvogel, how are you? How wonderful is to see you? He says, it made me feel like $1 million. Here he is, a stranger, and here's Rabbi Schonfeld talking to these people, and he singles them out. That was Rabbi Schonfeld. He not only didn't forget the name, he made everyone from little child to adult to feel good. Not that everybody reciprocated. I remember Rabbi Schonfeld telling me at one point that someone passed the by on Shabbos without saying hello. He says, what did I do for him that he doesn't say? You know, and I know our Koros HaTov is not in great abundance. There were many children saved by him that didn't like to remember they owe their lives. When he was in dire straits, very sick and needed 24 hours a day care, it was Rebbetzin Grunfeld, the headmistress, the most loyal, devoted servant of his, so to speak, who arranged for the nursing care. She wrote 500 letters to all as many addresses she had in the United States and England. And she showed me one letter she sent to a multimillionaire in California who wrote back, I don't know how to thank Rabbi Schonfeld. So me, my whole family, she told him about the need. He needs now 24 hours a day care. He sent a munificent $500. That's the man who didn't know how to thank this multimillionaire. She sent back the letter, very diplomatic letter, of course. I think he sent her a bigger check. But this is the man, he saved the whole family. Don't know how to thank Rabbi Schonfeld. So she had to go. I don't know why she had to type on her own little typewriter. She had to write all his letters. What happened to all the children he saved? What happened to all the people that could have hired, these children could have hired a secretary? Why Rabbi Grunfeld, already in her 80s, she had to do it. I still haven't figured that one out. I leave that for English theory to decide. But that was Schonfeld. He never forgot a name. And the one girl, one story I wrote about in the old book was the first thing the child asked. Yes, the child is, hast du Taschengeld? Have you got a few what do you call it?
Postman.
I was going to say pennies, or what are you going to, no, I don't mean pocket money. With the English money,
Pence.
the pence, so didn't have, so he gave her a half a shilling, I think, or something. You should have something. He said, that was my first English money. He said he was concerned you should feel good. You should have something in your pocket. You shouldn't feel like a stranger. He tried, what happened there? So the war broke out, and Rabbi Weissman, of course, went back just before the war started. He did not accept the possibility which Rabbi Schonfeld and the Archbishop of Canterbury had wanted to make arrangements. He could have stayed in England. And I told you he was working on a perpetual motion machine. That's what Schonfeld's son told me. One of his crazy ideas. Well, he had very crazy ideas. One of them is the Bible codes, of course. So the war broke out, and the British, of course, expected that the Germans would attack. And they evacuated as many children as they could from London and other big cities. And of course, Jewish children were affected as well. So Rabbi Schonfeld, thinking along the lines, what does one do? He made arrangements that they should have, one area was the village of Shefford, and 4 other surrounding villages. He was going to send about 500 of his children, many of whom are on the kinder transport brought over in December 38. And other English children from the schools, he made arrangements. Everybody in England had certain rules to follow for the evacuation, and he gave them a simple little rule. He said, tell the people, the goyim that you're going to stay with, that you're fish-eating vegetarians. He thought he covered all bases. So one former kid told me, first thing that his foster parents gave him was a lobster dinner. So what do you tell to goyim that didn't know what a Jew looked like? This is 40 miles away from London.
And children who couldn't speak a word of English. I was funny.
That's right. They couldn't speak English, and the English people thought, what kind of ingrates are these? Here we're trying to be nice to them. And they were really nice. They really opened their hearts and their homes to these Jewish children. They didn't know what a Jew was. And it took a while until Reverend Grufeld and the teachers all realized and made the rounds.